we did talk a lot about gameplay, and one of the big places everybody's looking at for action is going to be the Dark Zone.
Oh, man.
Yeah. You made a little video, 7 tips for succeeding in the Dark Zone. They were betray everybody 7 times.
It's completely obsolete.
But throw a grenade first.
I know, I will absolutely say one of the funny things about making that video is I spent maybe like 15, 20 hours capturing for that game, really learning it, getting all the gear you possibly could, and my experience in the first closed beta Dark Zone turned out to be completely night and day from my experience in the second closed beta. Because they rebalanced it, they reduced the incentive to go rogue. They made it more friendly to players who were just going to want a PvE or rogue hunt, though that had its own effects on the Dark Zone, and the Dark Zone in the second beta felt like a much less oppressive and threatening place, which sounds like a good thing. It's not, in my opinion. That's the only place you have to PvP in the whole game. You want it to be, you know, you go in there, like your HUD starts messing up, your radio goes quiet, and you really want it to feel like this kind of like Dark Souls-y, DayZ-ish kind of experience. And in the second beta, it was totally not that. It was just
has to be dangerous.
Yeah, and I think that hopefully that's something, Ubisoft was very receptive to the feedback from the first beta, so hopefully if people are vocal enough about it, I think that there needs to be some rebalancing there. But that 7 tips video hopefully one day will be viable again. Right now it's totally not. I tried to apply the tips that I learned from the first beta and the second beta, completely failed. Because as soon as you went rogue, there was just everybody looking to get you.
So what? I wonder if that's less of a rebalancing thing, more of just a culture thing.
It could be. It could be.
I did notice in the beta you could go up to level 8. The Dark Zone brackets were 1 through 4 through 7, and then 8 was its own bracket as well. That's the Dark Zone rank. That's different.
Okay.
These are just the level brackets of the characters, and I noticed 4 through 7 was a much friendlier place. A much more.
Not when we were in there.
Are you gonna? No, I know exactly how you feel. But it was sort of like you'd run up on players like, "Oh, are you gonna shoot? No, we're gonna hang out. Okay, cool."
Yeah.
And then when you got to 8, it was like as soon as someone rounds the corner, you're like, "There's a 50% chance this guy's gonna shoot me as soon as I turn around."
Yeah.
That's funny. That's not the experience I had at all.
Really, really. Okay, because when you hit max level in the beta, it was people went to the Dark Zone because that's where you go.
So think about the psychology of the closed beta, right? Or the second beta, the open beta. The psychology is, I have this max level character, I'm in this open world PvP area where I can kind of grief people. I'm going to do it because I only have 12 hours until this character is deleted forever. Why not? Okay. So and also you have that weird like beta red line that you couldn't cross that a lot of people use to kind of game the system. So I would argue that there was more incentive to go rogue in the open beta, and still almost nobody did it, and people who did were shot down pretty instantaneously. And it could be a player psychology thing. However, there were definitely some heavy tweaks in terms of the amount of experience it takes to get to Dark Zone level 12, in terms of the amount of DZ funds rewarded. I remember in the closed beta, when you died as a non-rogue, it was still a huge detriment. If you die as a non-rogue in the open beta, it really wasn't that bad unless you'd stockpiled like 7,000 credits or something.
So maybe that's what did it, that like the changes to the amount of currency needed or the amount of experience needed to gain DZ rank affected the player psychology in that they don't want to lose until they get to the cap. But I still think that traditionally in every game, I don't care what you're playing, the max level characters, the ones that are a level cap in an open area PvP sort of area, those are the players that are going to start attacking and griefing. So I think maybe towards the end of the open beta, when more players had reached level 12 and more players had gotten their whatever, the Liberator I think it was, that's when the griefing started. But I jumped in pretty late, and it was just sirens going off the entire time.
But isn't that a strange dynamic though? It's like instead of progressing by being the aggressor, it's I'm going to grind up as much as I can. It's a very old school MMO mind style.
Before you go into your battlegrounds.
So then I can grief all the noobs. Which,
but there's also like level brackets. There's level brackets that combat that.
And that's that's what it's supposed to. That's what it's supposed to do.
Right.
I think
but there's no DZ level brackets, right? It's only your character level.
Yeah, correct. DZ levels are sort of your, if you're looking for like a MMO analog, it would be like your
PvP rank.
Your reputation for a faction.
The coolest video I saw was one player wrecks 3 people who go rogue in Dark Zone. We have it on IGN. Fran got it, and
he was insanely geared.
What's really interesting about that is your gear is totally going to matter. And an inexperienced player, if they shoot at you, they're going to get wrecked because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to spec properly yet, and that is kind of something you're going to be watching out for when you're 100%. In the Dark Zone. Like, what does that guy? What kind of gun does that guy have?
Yeah, I mean, look at again. I hate to keep going back to it, but like World of Warcraft, is you see a character with fucking spikes and blades and crap.
It's funny because it's a little bit more subtle, and it's like, oh, that guy's gun is painted white.
Yeah, exactly. Like he has a teal gun, guys. He's got a teal gun. But in WoW, you see a guy covered in horns and spikes and blades and like glowing crap, and I'm like, there's probably a pretty good chance if I look at you, you're gonna kill me.
Yeah.
And so I would go away. In the Division, I felt the exact same way. Like I saw a guy with that teal gun, and he fired at me, and I fired back, and like I felt like I was. I'm
unloading.
I'm no slouch or anything. I felt like I was putting a good clip into him with my marksman rifle, and like he didn't go down.
Yeah.
And I was.
It is an RPG.
It's one of those moments where like you got to remember it's not a shooter. It's an RPG. Like it is gear dependent. You have to get the good gear, which means you're going to spend time in the dark zone.
But I will say, tip number 4: open with a grenade. Still very viable. I was able to.
They can't sprint if they're bleeding.
They can't sprint, they're bleeding, and it just does so much damage, especially if you have a friend on like TeamSpeak or something, or over Xbox Live com, whatever those console kids use, and you all just throw grenades at the same time. Apparently I'm going to be the only PC player of the Division.
You're doing PC, you're doing PS4, and I'm doing Xbox One.
I think I'm going to take a page out of your book. I'm going to do both because I think Xbox One's my primary platform, but there's so many people playing in the office on PC that I want to cash in on that.
I'm going to be touching all 3 of the consoles, kind of going back and forth. Primarily, though, Xbox One, just because of that content exclusivity.
Sure.
Just for smart. Coverage reasons.
Actually, that's really smart.
You want to be able to check it out.
Like played a ton of Destiny and
PS4,
you played it on PS4 for the same reason. And do you feel as though that was a good decision in retrospect?
Yeah, because we had early access to the strikes and stuff. We get those videos up faster. So I'm thinking from a production standpoint about what platform I'm going to play on.
I didn't even think about that.
So I'll be playing alongside our reviewer who is going to be playing on PS4. So I want to be able to make sure that I'm with him to do co-op stuff as well.
Cool. What do you guys think you're going to do with the Dark Zone? Like, when are you going to go in, for example?
So I've thought about this.
Level 30.
Yeah.
Many a nights. I'm going to get to level 30 and then go to the Dark Zone.
You think?
Yeah.
There is zero incentive for me. Again,
why hop in?
I hate beating this horse to death. But look at WoW. Look at Vanilla WoW. You did all your stuff. Burning Crusade came out. And within 6 hours, your character looked like a pinata, like just super different colors and like all that tier 1 gear I worked so hard to get. It was all gone. I had green legs and a pink shirt and a white hat. It's like there's no point for me to go spend time in the Dark Zone, get all this great gear for a level bracket, unless you want to Smurf or whatever.
Twink.
Or Twink, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know what the phrase is these days. No, unless you want to get into the Dark Zone and like sit at a level cap and just grief everyone that comes through. There's no incentive to doing that versus just leveling up, doing your quests and all that, and then coming into the Dark Zone and getting your high level gear for end game content.
I agree, and I was actually going to ask you about that because I thought that was one thing that was a little bit unclear.
Sure.
In other MMOs or just other games where you have the option of like getting super geared for your level or leveling up, the choice is always leveling up in terms of optimal progression. That being said, you can play the game you want to play it. Like I remember some of the best times I had in games like World of Warcraft were when I was level 29 and playing in that PvP bracket because you get tired of leveling. Like if PvE is really just like, if you play it for 12 hours a day right after launch, you maybe need a break mentally and you can go do some PvP.
I wonder if it's going to be like Destiny. So with Destiny and Vanilla, you hit like level 20 and like you had to go into Crucible to progress, basically. That was your easiest way to do it. But also with the Division, there isn't like a Destiny Crucible setting where you can do team deathmatch or whatever you want. It's just the Dark Zone. Like that's the multiplayer PvP area.
Right, and the biggest thing that we haven't mentioned yet about why we wouldn't go into the Dark Zone is because you don't get conventional experience.
You don't get experience.
You get Dark Zone levels, which are all well and good, but I mean,
if you're trying to buy gear,
sure.
But if you want experience, if you want to gain levels, you can't do it in the Dark Zone.
Right,
the Dark Zone is only for grinding that reputation or your DZ rank and earning Dark Zone currency to buy gear. So why would I spend 20,000 gear on a high-end assault rifle if I'm level 20? When by the time I hit level 30, I'm gonna have a new gun that's green that just does better. Anyway.
Also, I noticed that the amount of Dark Zone funds you get, at least at level 7, it was like you killed a guy, you got 15. And then level 8, which was definitely tweaked for the beta, you got like 200 or something.
Wow.
So
that's a big difference.
I think by the time you're 30, you'll probably be getting more for your time invested.
Yeah, I imagine if you're level 30 and you kill in Dark Zone rank 1 and you kill a named boss at level 30, you're gonna hit like DZ rank 14, like off one enemy.
Yeah,
there could be something that we haven't seen yet though. So, but I'm not.
Yeah,
I feel like
there's something there. That level's there for a reason.
Yeah, and it's definitely like the end game PvP area.
I think it's to keep from you getting one-shotted from level 30s.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Right.
So you're only playing with like a difference of 6 levels.
Right.